This is the outer tie rod of our crash-damaged Nissan GT-R. This is what a new outer tie rod should look like. You can see we've got a problem here. We've just north of a 90-degree bend on the original. I'm not sure how, I mean, this looks pretty clean. The impact was just so extreme on this side of the car, but you can see the replacement is about, what do you think, like a 40, maybe 45-degree angle. So just so much better. I think this is gonna help straighten out the wheel alignment problem we saw at the beginning.
But little did we know, a simple wheel alignment issue would be the least of our worries. A couple of months ago, we found this crash-damaged 2014 Nissan GT-R on Copart, and additional digging led us to a wild story of short-lived ownership and a serious car accident. After winning the bid for nearly $40,000 and literally dragging it home, we set out on a journey that would have us doing things I never thought possible in my own garage and without a lift. Removing the entire front subframe wasn't on my bucket list per se, but Tommy and I made it happen, and it's led us here.
I'm sure many of you are anticipating the welding, the sort of hacking we're gonna have to do at the replacement front end that we purchased from TAE in Tampa. And let me tell you, I'm doing everything I can to avoid that at all costs. So we're gonna focus on the engine for a little while. We're gonna take care of the Serpentine belt now that the outer tie rods have been satisfied. Then we'll move on to fueling and spark. At that point, the engine should be pretty much dressed up about as far as we can get it before it remerges with the hopefully repaired frame at the end of this video. First things first, I want to carefully pull back on this tensioner without making the engine topple over. And we're gonna slide this little pin in here to keep it locked in place for the new belt. Quickly looked up a cheat sheet. So this is the belt diagram, and there's no timing component attached to any of this, so you don't have to make sure that things are spun a certain way or anything. It kind of just glides in when that tensioner pulley is locked in place.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah, that's where we should have done it.
You can pull the pin. There we go.
We're good. Yeah, pull that pin. Look at that. There's a GT-R belt taken care of, and that tension feels real good. Next up, our Injector Dynamics 1050. So these are upgraded fuel injectors. Now, these are good for apparently up to like 800,000 horsepower, which we are not going to hit with a stock block and stock transaxle. But figured, why not, since we're in here? They don't cost much extra, and I definitely don't want to reuse the originals because they were running E85 when they shouldn't have. And Tommy has just informed me the 1050X, so that letter there indicates that these injectors are actually good for any sort of ethanol blend, which is good if we don't want to siphon out the fuel that's already in the system, which again is E85. These should play nicely with it. Now, some folks made fun of me for using a Dyson to clean the innards of our Audi S5, but I'm gonna use it for this as well, because we get a lot of like acorn chippings and just other debris that settle in the V that my shop vac is not gonna be able to reach. So here we go. You're technically not supposed to use engine oil to lube up these O-rings. We just want to make sure that they don't get damaged when we slide them into the engine. That should mitigate any tears. We'll start with this back one first with the connector facing toward the rear, since that is where the harness will funnel. I believe that's good. Now it's a little jarring that it's like loose, but I'm pretty sure that's how they're supposed to be because they'll be pressed by the fuel rails once those are bolted in later. There's number 2. Here's 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. And here is our original fuel rail, which I need to remember how this goes. I think this route's underneath some stuff. I'm gonna gently set the rail on top. Make sure that they're all aligned. They all look pretty good, and then we're gonna gently push down. You'll hear a pop, and that's the O-ring for each injector sliding into the rail assembly. That there feels pretty dang good, and then just a few bolts will secure it all in place.
You going fishing?
Okay, don't judge my tackle box, bro. We needed a lot of these because, well, there's a lot of bolts to go through. Now I have labeled most of what we initially took apart in the first and second videos. I'm looking for fuel rail. So these bolts right here are gonna tighten it down.
Where's the hooks and the bait?
I have a separate tackle box for that. Next up are these spark plugs. So we are going to carefully thread these in one at a time. And I've got my torque wrench here because these are supposed to be torqued to about 20 Newton meters a piece. Come on now.
There it is.
There's our click. Okay, whew. This thing hasn't let me down before. Granted, it's not like a $1,000 torque wrench. I know some guys will tell you, hey, you need to spend a lot of money on these because you don't want to get this wrong, especially for like higher end, like more powerful cars. But we're followers on budgets. Come on.
We don't use Snap-on in this garage.
Come on. We'll be okay here. And we asked Derek, who we were actually, we were over at his place yesterday. We'll be over there later today as well, doing a security system install, if these need to be gapped. Because I know Tommy's been having some issues with his Evo that we also tinkered with a bit on the Salazar's Cars channel. And we wanted to make sure that the gap on these was right before we threw them into the engine. Apparently, according to Derek, these are already good to go. And Derek's word on GT-R stuff is as good as gold. So whatever the man says is how we're gonna do this, since he builds those all the time. Let's drop number 5 in.
How about a few more Iridium spark plugs? If you're wondering, these were about 20 bucks a piece, and I should note that these replacements were not needed, though foregoing the service at 30,000 miles with the engine in its current state would be a sin in my book. After each was torqued to spec, we moved to coil packs, which simply slide over each plug and fasten with a single bolt apiece. Then it was time to rearrange the garage for what would ultimately be the wildest 2 weeks of frame repair we've ever endured, which isn't really saying much because we've never done anything like this before.
We've put it off long enough. Now it's time to drill. And full confession, I've only done research online. I've never done any sort of drilling like this before, let alone on steel and on a car. We're gonna practice with parts of the frame rail that are damaged on the original car first to get a feel for it, because we have to drill through several spot welds and then pry away different layers of steel in the process. At least that's what I think you're supposed to do. So when Jack mentioned drilling in the last video, he's referring to all of these different spot welds along, again, the frame rails. There are spot welds all over the car, but of course this is our primary focal point. So we're gonna have to drill through almost all of these. This is gonna be our practice area. Of course, we're gonna be stripping much further back than this on the driver's side, but we're gonna practice here because we're not recycling this piece at all, clearly. And then once most of these spot welds are taken care of, I think what we need to do next is start prying away these different laminated like steel layers. And I'm not sure how many of them there are. Jack described it as sort of an onion. You have to peel back multiple layers of steel to sort of discover what areas can be saved and what areas need to be completely chopped off. Again, that's how I think this is supposed to go.
I think all of the important areas of this garage have been covered because it's going to get dusty. We don't want to breathe that in, so Tommy and I are both going to be wearing these full-face gas masks with particulate filters, and we're just going to hope they do the job.
We're wearing the same one. We're both going to fit in there.
So we're...
See, one for you.
Got a little room for you, Tommy.
Dude, I am so green, I don't even know how to tighten this stupid mask.
We need to have McLovin here.
Jacob would...
Don't say his government name.
Yeah, don't say his government name. There's a reason why Jack hates this. There's a reason why Derek hates this. They all know the labor involved, and that's what we're about to begin here. And we don't even know what we're doing, so that's going to like double the workload essentially. We're going to have to undo some things. I don't even know if we make mistakes, if they're even fixable, which is why we're starting with the damaged stuff first.
And so began the start of a very, very, very steep learning curve. I have drilled plenty of stuff in my 30 years on Earth, but never this kind of steel, and never spot welds that can be especially strong, and never on something this quote-unquote fragile, being a car, something I'm eventually going to drive someday. We started with a sort of circular bit that started with a needle-like guide to get things started. Jack recommended we avoid these, but we wanted to sort of experience it ourselves and wanted to know what these things kind of behaved like versus a traditional cobalt or carbide drill bit. And it turns out they absolutely sucked. But out of sheer stubbornness, we persisted with them as long as we could.
It's a lot of work. You're gonna hear me say that several times throughout this section of the video.
That's why Jack said we have to do it.
I was wondering, like, he's like, I'm not drilling. There's a clip where he says that. I'm not drilling. And
I'm not drilling.
I don't know why he doesn't want
I'm not calling you back till you're done.
He's definitely been there before. He knows, like, this is like in the trenches. And I'm already kind of exhausted. We just did one of those. Took like 5 minutes.
You did good. Good job. Is it lunchtime?
It's not a good job. It is almost lunchtime.
Back to drilling we went, more circular bits to chew through here, and I should note that it only took us a couple of hours to completely destroy a good half a dozen included in our kit. which, mind you, came from Amazon, though these were specifically for steel. Things partly took so long though because we weren't really applying a ton of force to the drill each time, which is something we sort of learned along the way, and we were teetering between a traditional drill setting and hammer mode. Long story short, drill, do not hammer, especially when it comes to this sort of stuff here when pushing through tough steel. By the way, you'll see Tommy and I interchangeably tackling various aspects of this prep work, and that's because I wanted him every bit as exposed to these techniques as I was, for future rebuilds and just general knowledge. Handy skills like these could certainly help down the line, whether it be for car work, say on this channel, or various personal projects. And Tommy has several of those, including his own channel, which I'm gonna have linked below if you want to check it out. But if I'm being honest, he was actually picking up on all of this faster than I was.
Before we go any further, wanted to reach out to Jack just for a sanity check. Send him 2 photos, one from directly above. You want to show him here how far you and I both have gotten. We did this together, and you frankly did a much better job than I did. And then send him some shots of the spot welds. No, I'm not going to say that again. And just, yeah, wanted to see if what we were doing was correct. And verbatim, his words, that's perfect. That's exactly how you want to do it, which is exactly what we wanted to hear. That's sort of a blessing to keep going with this. We're not going to touch anything vital yet because Jack's going to swing by possibly sometime today or tomorrow to kind of like point out the areas that we need to drill further back. But for now, we're still going to focus on things that we're scrapping anyway, just for more practice. Practice makes perfect. Or close to it.
Switching over to our cobalt bits was a godsend. After figuring out that punching small pilot holes would allow said bits to grab and eat metal, literally as they twisted, we quickly began working on a portion of the frame we'd be removing anyway for extra practice. This would basically just be sawed off. And this proved very, very useful. It taught us how to work with this particular steel's properties, how hard to push, how long, when to let off, and how to keep our bits from exploding in the process. Not to mention, some of these spot welds and prying locations were in hard to reach places, particularly without a lift. Now the belt sander was super important for lap joints and other welded areas marrying 2 or more sheets of steel. And in cases where we didn't necessarily want to drill completely through something I like to call Swiss cheesing, sanding became the go-to option. Anywhere between 40 and 80 grit for this kind of steel was the go-to. It was super important to penetrate deep enough such that the target layer was weakened to the point where it would peel away easily, but not deep enough that it would essentially bore out a giant hole and damage panels underneath it. This piece here was joined in all sorts of ways and became a sort of symbol of our swift progress and accomplishment after only a few hours. Not too bad if I do say so myself.
Woo! Hey, that's not too bad, huh, Tommy?
Nice job.
That I feel pretty good about.
We've just been kind of getting our feet wet with the tools and the procedure. So we'll have Jack look over this work. I'm sure he's going to tell us it looks absolutely pathetic. But, maybe he can give us a few pointers.
He's a nice guy, though. I don't think he's going to say that.
He'll tell us nicely. He's like, guys, this looks pathetic.
Jack swung by at just the right time. Once we were comfortable enough moving forward, he marked all the areas we'd need to grind as well as drill in order to replace both sides correctly and to ensure the GT-R would ultimately be safe to drive on the road again, which is the end goal. I've said this in every episode of this rebuild so far, but we wouldn't be anywhere without Jack. So be sure to show him some love over at Jack Builds It, his YouTube channel, where he's currently rebuilding 2 incredible cars virtually from scratch, the Noble and the Mark IV Supra. Something else I appreciate about how Jack has taught us how to do this is that he's actually been very hands-off, which I know on the surface might seem a bit weird, right? Why would you want him to be hands-off? But his instructions were clear, his demonstrations were quick and effective. I mean, he didn't hold our hands through anything. He didn't try to micromanage us. He wanted us to learn. And so since we had the tools to practice over and over, our techniques slowly improved. So as the next several days passed, we continued chipping away at each damaged frame rail. Tons of chiseling, tons of drilling, tons of sanding, and tons of debris. The garage quickly became a mess, and it was so important to us to clean each and every day along the way for a more conducive working environment. It's the same discipline I extend to my personal office upstairs for the Greg Salazar channel. I can't really think clearly in a dirty space. But anyway, somewhere along the way, we managed to pry both outer frame rails away from the remainder of the chassis, revealing something I honestly wasn't expecting: an entirely hollow interior? Like, how on earth is this sort of design managing to hold up an entire engine? That is just beyond me, but it's pretty cool.
One big piece we've been waiting on for a while, a replacement fuel harness. So this is for the injectors, and after Derek over at Drizza Auto noticed how badly Our original harness was sort of spliced together, definitely a fire hazard. He told us to go ahead and order a full replacement. I wanted a new one coming from Japan. They were subject to like tariffs and stuff. We didn't want to deal with any of that. So I bought a used one. Okay. Well, it looks better than ours at least. So this is gonna connect right there. We had Derek look over these. He said these are actually made very well. Some of these from other brands, other products, can be a bit questionable. You want to make sure that you don't have any spark issues around fuel, so you guys know what happens. I think that's all the way in. It didn't click.
I didn't hear it click.
I didn't hear it click either. I'm a click kind of guy. If I don't hear it click, I get nervous. But I think we're good. That side clicked for sure. Now it's time to expose our intake runners, and I believe there's a direction on this. Tommy, if you could just hold that for me, and film and provide excellent commentary and everything else. Just do it all at once.
Can I make fun of you?
No,
Oh, sorry.
That's not part of the idea. Tommy, what's the torque spec on these?
Very lightly.
The good thing is now we're going to have gaskets on both sides, whereas before we were missing one of those, which would not have been good for boost. We're pretty familiar with these now. I think we're just going to hand tighten. That's decent enough. And I'm actually going to cross tighten this time. All right, now I think we can tackle the fuel rail for the third time. Then we can push down, just like that.
Oh, good news.
Oh, right to you. I'm just glad it didn't go in here. That would be bad. We don't want any stripping. This is not a strip club. Right, Tommy?
Is that a dad joke? Because that's really good, actually.
It's a dad joke.
That's a dad joke?
Oh, man, I'm getting old.
It's a Grand Theft Auto joke. You excited for GTA 6? Are we going to play?
Yeah, when I'm 60 and it finally releases.
Oh,
it's the truth.
I don't have a comeback for that because it's true.
It's true. Yeah, it's not even a joke. It's just for real.
Oh.
Like we're gonna move on to like freaking full VR integrated headsets and stuff, like VR rooms. We're not even gonna have PCs anymore. All right, so these are all connected, Tommy. Looking pretty good, pretty clean. I love that you can't see into the fueling when the manifold is on, which is this guy right here. Now this originally was just sitting like so without a gasket. We're gonna fix that, of course. We have a replacement gasket ordered from Z1 Motorsports. That's where we get a lot of our Nissan parts. They've been super helpful. By the way, with that issue on the driver's side fender, we reached out to them. They offered us 2 different solutions, which we thought was super cool. The first, full refund. They sent us a shipping label, so it would have been no cost to us to get our money back and send it to them. They also recommended we order directly from Nissan so that we could pick it up in person to minimize shipping issues like what we saw. So very cool on their part. The other option, which is the one we're actually gonna take them up on, they offered us a $100 refund, which I think is going to cover the small bit of body work we're gonna have to do to that panel to get it right. It's gonna have to be sanded and prepped anyway, and my body guy says it's not gonna be a big deal at all. So super cool of them, $100 back. Hey, $100 saved. It's gonna go, it's not gonna go a long way for this build, but it's something. So yeah, this does look super cool. Again, it's a more finished engine, at least on the top end, but we don't wanna get ahead of ourselves because we need to, again, run the harness to the coil packs. They have to slide underneath this small gap here where the throttle bodies sit. So for sure with the throttle bodies on, there's no way we could get the harness underneath for cleaner cable runs, and so we're not gonna jump on this bandwagon just yet. Also want to take the time to clean this up. This is part of the car that you're going to see. A lot of folks who are going for higher boost, higher horsepower, higher output are going to replace this with something like an AMS intake manifold, which is made of carbon fiber. Several $1,000s though, and we're already pinching pennies as it is. So I think I'm going to give this a good scrub and then possibly maybe like spray it with a metallic finish. These don't get too hot up top. We'll maybe use like an engine enamel just to be safe, but we'll clean this up because it will be a part of the car that you see when the hood is open.
Now, in order to fully dress the engine, we had to remove the engine harness, which was no simple feat. The entire passenger section of the GT-R's dash had to come out along with the glove box, giving way to an interesting location for an ECU and various harness clips. Once those were removed, on the base side, a few clips, covers, and grommets were set aside for the purpose of maneuvering the ECU side of the harness through this large hole in the firewall. By the way, here's a look at the stock ECU for a Nissan GT-R. Now in the old days, you'd have to send a unit like this out to a tuner, but nowadays, thanks to things like Access Port, these control units can be coded with simple tools through OBD2. We'll set this aside for now.
I gotta say, it's really cool to see this harness fully removed from the car, and since we now have it, it's literally right here in my hands, the entire thing, this is awesome, we can now fully dress up the engine. Since it's removed, and since we're not gonna be impeded by the frame and such, this of course is why Derek's recommendation was so clutch here, we can now fully dress up the engine, get the intake manifold fully assembled, and have that ready to just simply drop into place. All we'll need to do, once the front subframe is remarried to the frame, is route this cluster of connectors back through the firewall. That's much easier than trying to, rewire all this stuff to the engine once it's rebolted to the frame.
Next up, how about some additional performance mods? Catted downpipes are my go-to, obviously, for quick power and turbocharged engines. The idea is to reduce as much back pressure as possible, and stock catalytic converters are notorious for being extremely dense and difficult to breathe through. What you're looking at here is the inside of our OEM cat. You get a sense of just how restrictive something like this can be when a bunch of pressurized exhaust gas is forcing its way through. All for emissions.
I am super excited for these things because it doesn't make sense to make a ton of power only to have it super restricted from the turbo back. And that's why I've gotten these catted downpipes. These are actually a really good price. I'm gonna have these linked in the description for anyone else has a GT-R. They're not gonna give you that really nasty smell like you'll get from straight race pipes, which don't have any cats at all. So all the nasty fumes and stuff coming from the engine will somewhat be absorbed by this still. And that's because the cats in these, which you can't really see from this angle, are much thinner. So they aren't as densely packed, which means we're gonna get much better flow from the turbo through the exhaust, and that helps us make more power faster and potentially lower down as well. Also, can I just say, these look absolutely gorgeous.
I just couldn't help myself. I had to see what these looked like bolted up against our turbos, and boy oh boy, they did not disappoint. Now, in truth, they'd be coming off again in the next video for when our titanium turbo stud kit arrives. The OEM studs were pretty rusted out. You can sort of see that in this shot here. So this became a, quote, while I'm in here sort of expense. Then came all the heat shields, which we did not want to forget. Tommy got to work hacking away at the passenger side frame rail, which still needed some work, and I focused on the wiring harness. Since I was again the one to remove it in the first place, I figured I'd be the one to better recall the locations of various sensors and clips throughout. Some of these were in very obscure places, mind you, and they were nearly impossible to reach in the first place, so the fact that we had open access now was sweet. Next came the upper manifold gasket, which if you recall was missing when the car arrived from Copart. That would not have been good, followed by our recently painted intake manifold. Now this, I'm gonna be honest, I am so proud of. I mixed a few different metallic engine enamels for a finish I thought complemented the aluminum sheen underneath, and it turned out pretty clean. Just a few pieces to go, including a line at the back as well as a sensor, and we could gently drop it into place atop our dressed engine. It was starting to come together on this front, and it was super exciting to be as hands-on as we were. This thing is going to absolutely scream when it fires up again after everything it's been through. And that goes without saying, this was all highly therapeutic. I could do it again and again, especially with an engine as famous as this one.
Totally unintentional, dude, but this little paint job here, we didn't even film this because I didn't think it would look that great. It definitely looks better than it did though, and it just, I mean, it's almost an exact match to the vanity cover. That is crazy. That's like, that just looks so good together, man. All right, now we just gotta get it in the engine, or in the engine bay.
Let's do it. Wait, we have to fix the engine
Yeah,
bay first.
maybe we need to fix a few things first. And I believe this is the first instance of being able to use our new titanium bolt kit. So this is gonna replace all of the visual bolts and nuts and even washers in the engine bay. And this was about, what did I pay? It was a few $100s, I think. Again, splurging, doesn't really change anything about the car except for aesthetics, but since this engine bay is gonna look so good with all the upgraded parts, figured why not go the titanium route? And these are brushed titanium, so you get that raw look, and it's gonna, I think, complement nicely this little silverish metallic finish. Definitely the right thread size, just a bit long. But look at that. Oh yeah. And that's gonna be all over the engine bay. Definitely jumping the gun a bit here, but I just can't help myself. That looks so good.
Looks right.
Dude, it cuts. Dude, just that little bit right there, that sawed straight through that. So this is a pretty good saw. Dude, that was awesome. That was so cool. Look at that. Look at that. This holds up the front of the engine, all the core support. Just these thin little pieces of steel. It is absolutely crazy. I don't know why. I always thought these were solid, but that would probably weigh a lot more. And what we can do now with the carbon properties of steel today, I mean, we can make this stuff really strong. So it's just really cool to see how they make these. And I gotta say, for my first ever cut with a Sawzall, that's pretty clean.
That's what's up, dude.
All right,
nice job.
Now you're gonna do that side.
Well, saying since you did so well, you should do that side too.
This is day, 14, 15, something like that, on the frame job for this car. And I just want to give you an update. So where we are currently, we've got both frame rails cut back to roughly where the sectioning procedure is. So now that we have that info, we were able to save the entire inside portion of this rail because we can section in, according to Nissan, somewhere in this area. We gave it a little bit more of a buffer zone here, so we're gonna have to shave some of this back. The donor clip, I wanna show you. So we're gonna be making a bunch of different cuts. We're gonna be drilling, grinding here, and this is gonna be a little different than what we did on the original car. So all of these dots here, Tommy, these are gonna be markers for drilling straight through. So we actually grinded this entire line on the original car. On the donor, we're gonna be drilling through because we preserved the panel underneath because we didn't drill through over there. Let's see, this whole side on the inside of the car, we're gonna have to grind. So just gonna kind of do like something like that there. So we're gonna have to grind all of that. And then all of this up here on both sides, we aren't going to touch. We're gonna make one incision somewhere along this line. And that's gonna give us a little over an inch of buffer room. And then we're gonna have to grind this back even further to line it up square with what we have on the original car. So there's a lot of precision involved in this, and we don't wanna cut too short, because if we have to fill in gaps with extra metal, it's not ideal. It could either make the panel too strong or too weak and could cause issues down the line. Of course, we want to do this as right as possible and obviously weigh our time and effort in this as well. So we're gonna do stuff we've never done before. We've done a lot of that already, and we're just gonna keep going. We've had Jack occasionally call in and check on our progress, and he's been giving us the green light every single time. So far so good. We just can't mess up this part, because if we do, then we need more frame rails, and it's back to TAE we go.
Of course, we did not want that to happen, as individual rails were still around $600 a piece and we were tight on money as it was, so we double and triple checked each and every measurement and mark along the way to ensure that we didn't cut too far forward along the clip on either side. And you definitely didn't see this one coming. A lot of grinding, sanding, drilling, chiseling, and prying is what followed, all in the name of giving new life to a totaled R35. I never would have guessed this car would be our second rebuild on Salazar's cars, but if you're enjoying our content so far, then maybe consider subscribing. It would mean a ton to a channel as young as ours.
You're smiling.
I mean, I'm smiling, but I'm smiling through pain, and I'm sure Tommy
Great
is
job,
too.
man.
Tommy always stays positive. It's great to have
Dude,
somebody like that to bounce off of.
That's exciting, dude. Look at that.
Yeah, you get really low doing this if you're not in the right headspace, and I'm just glad I got someone persistent like Tommy with
Wait,
me
next
here.
one will be easier.
So yeah, next one's gonna be
And it's
easier.
right behind you. There it is.
Don't remind me.
Okay. We should have a beer.
That sounds really good. So, leading it out right there. Yeah, we build GTRs around these parts.
What kind of GT-Rs are you making, bro?
Just kind of test fitting here. We clearly went further back than we needed to. So we need to shave off about 1 inch on this piece, and then we'll use some pre-existing holes in the original frame to line up this replacement rail. So this one here that bolts to the front of the strut tower, that's kind of our reference point, and that's, again, about 1 inch or so away from where we are now. And with a bit of hammering, we'll get a flat surface set up, and we'll straighten out the outside of this rail, which is frankly the less important of the two. The inside part is clearly the stronger one. We'll be able to line up our spot welds and then begin welding, which we know nothing about.
What if we gave you a new nickname? Greg the Chisel Salazar.
I hate chisels right now. I hate them.
Greg the Belt Sander Salazar.
Now that one I can get behind. That one's a pretty cool tool.
All right, so Greg is making the final cuts right now. Oh, dude.